Alright guys, obviously you can tell that this is a completely different setup than my normal. Um, this is a completely different video. As I promised, I am going to show you guys how to knit socks. So this is going to be the first lesson. If this is not what you were looking for, if you already know how to knit socks and don't care how I knit them, or don't want to learn to knit socks or whatever, just stop this video and move on. Like I said, I am going to label it differently, but just in case I have anybody here that actually doesn't want to watch, please stop watching. So the setup is quite interesting. I actually have the iPad sitting on two rulers that are like a bridge over a lamp and a stack of like books and stuff over here. I can barely see what's going on the screen, so hopefully this is going to be okay. I am gonna drink a pot of tea. I am pretty dehydrated today. I was out and about all day, and anyway, the tea I'm drinking, I finally found, oh gosh, African solstice tea. It's a loose leaf tea. I only poured a little bit in my teacup because it's still really hot, so I'm letting that kind of cool down. So anyway, this is pretty much what you're gonna need to knit these socks. I have my instructions here. I have 5 knitting needles. I use 2.5 millimeter. I'm using bamboo, but I have used metal needles. If you want to do magic loop, please go ahead and feel free to do magic loop. I'm showing double pointed version. You'll need a measuring tape. Right now, don't need it, but eventually you will need it, starting with the foot. Today I'm only going to show you how to do the toe. You need probably just 1 stitch marker, but for instructions, I have an idea and I'm going to be using 4. 1 for each of the knitting needles, and then you always have your blank knitting needle, which would be the 5th one. So this will come into play in a little bit. And then of course your yarn. I am using a sock weight yarn, a superwash merino. I don't have a color or a ball band for this. I got this without a ball band, but this is I actually didn't finish this sock, but I really wanted to start these videos. So this is kind of the finished object. Once I just got a little bit more of the cuff to do and then the bind off, but excuse the dog hair. But this is essentially what we are going to be knitting, or what I'm going to be knitting. I'm just going to be knitting the second one of these, so you can kind of see. No idea how that's showing up. Okay, I'm gonna stay down here. We are gonna start with the toe today. I'm literally gonna walk you through the step on how to make the toe, and then I'll end the video there and tell you to knit the sock, the foot, to a certain length. And then once you've done that, I want you to come back to episode 2, video 2 of this. And when that happens, I'll show you how to do the gusset, which that's a pretty easy video. That'll be really quick. Then once we are finished with that, then I'll show you the heel. Once we're finished with that, then we'll do the leg, and then we'll have another video of the cuff, and then a bind off. So that is kind of this construction of a sock that I do. Obviously it's a toe up. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So we'll get started. Let me drink some more tea because I think it's finally cooled off. I don't know if you guys can hear it, and I might turn it up later because I'll be doing a lot of knitting and not needing to talk a lot because I'm actually going to walk you through the entire toe section. So I have some big band music, some like 1940s music on in the background. I do not own any rights to the songs, so please do not report me, which I totally don't understand. If the songs can play on the radio for free, why can't I have them in a video? I don't know. So anyway. So my instructions are, I do what's called a Judy's Magic cast on. And I used to do where I would increase my stitches until I had 64 stitches. I've now decreased that to just 60 stitches, but I still cast on the 32. I found that I wanted my socks a little bit tighter. So you kind of have to just trial and error of what fits your foot the best. I wear like a 9.5 women's shoe. I thought I had pretty big feet, but apparently the 64 stitches was just a little bit too loose for me. Not horrible. I have most of my pairs are still the 64, but since I was making my own, I figured I could tweak it myself. And that's one of the reasons why I love knitting socks, is I can make it the way I want to. So anyway, let me get going. I've got a lot of knitting to do, so I could talk while doing that. All right, so we are going to do the Judy's Magic Cast On. If you do not like how I'm showing you this, you can definitely Google it or YouTube it and find it, and that's how I found it. I think I typed in easiest toe-up sock cast on, and I found this, and I've stuck with it. You'll need a pretty good length of a tail. I would say I always end up doing more than I need to, but probably a good like 12 inches or so, maybe 16 inches. I always rather have more yarn than needed on the tail than not needed. I have plenty of yarn, and I could always cut the yarn if it's too much. So you make what I believe is called a simple slip knot, but I grab the yarn in my left and right hand. With my right hand, I make a loop, and I don't know how well that's showing up. And then I drape the working yarn behind the circle, and you can see it right there. Then I grab one of my knitting needles, and I go from the top, grab that strand, and come back up. Okay? And then just cinch it on there. You don't have to make it super tight. If you make it super tight, you'll end up having some troubles because you'll be fighting it. I hope that if anybody's watching this to learn, they know how to knit. But I am going to give you, like every step, instructions. If you go, oh, yes, I know how to do this, please forgive me, because there might be somebody that doesn't know how. Okay. This is where it gets a little tricky. You're going to grab another knitting needle and kind of have it parallel to this one, okay? I try to leave just a tiny space between, okay? And then you're going to go between the legs, kind of like how you used to do like the long tail cast on, okay? You're going to go between these two legs, and like I said, I like to have a little bit of space between, go between the legs, always hold the yarn, and you're gonna, since there's no yarn on the knitting needle closest to me, I'm gonna grab the one up here, like so. Then I'm gonna cross over and go under and grab that one. And you're gonna keep doing this until you have 32 stitches on. And I'm just going to keep going nice and slow for you guys so you can see what I'm doing. If you have any problems, obviously you can stop and replay and whatever you need to do, okay? I may need to adjust, so sorry. Like I said, I try to leave a little bit of gap. Try not to make it too tight, because I have learned that it does cause some issues with the next step. And this has been my favorite cast on for my toe-up socks. Technically, it's the only one I've ever tried, but I've really enjoyed it. It is a little finicky to do this and the next step, but it doesn't leave any bumps or anything like that on the toes, which is one of the things I absolutely hate with manufactured socks. There's always that little like sewn bump at the tip, and I hate that. It rubs on my toes and stuff, and so like I said, that's one of the reasons why I started knitting my own socks. It was also, it was also something that I did not like about the Kitchener. Make sure we're still recording. Okay. The Kitchener stitch. Oh, see, now I forgot. Oh, last one was this one, so we're going to do this one. As even, the Kitchener stitch doesn't really leave a bump, but it did a little bit. And it just, and to me, the Kitchener stitch is tedious. I will do it on occasion, but it is not a favorite of mine. And like I said, this is a little tedious, but once you get it done, you're done. You don't have to worry about it again until your next sock. So, and sorry, but this is actually not the most tedious part of this toe-up sock. Okay, I have not been counting, so I am going to go ahead and count my stitches. I count by twos because that's how I do things. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. And then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Holy crap. Look at that. That's 13 or 32. Wow. I think I've been doing this a long time. I was like, hey, that actually looks about the right number. So hopefully yours looks like this. You've got your yarn on the bottom and you're still holding it nice and parallel like this. I need to hire somebody to pour me the more tea. Okay, so this is another step of where it gets a little finicky. You're going to turn the work. Okay, just switch it around. You still want that working and tail yarn down here. You want the nice bumps of the stitches here. And these look like purl stitches. You want those on the bottom. It's almost like a rib. You can feel it. It's a bump. Okay. All right. Grab a third knitting needle. And you've got to make sure that you work with the working yarn. You don't want to grab the tail. And I try to make sure that the tail stays nice and crossed. As you can see, I don't know how well you can see. The working tail is this more of green color right here. I try to keep that, and I actually kind of grab it with all that. So I ignore it. Grab your working yarn, and like I said, this is quite finicky. I split the needles like this. And once again, try to keep that tight. And what you're going to do is we're going to knit into these back stitches. Not these front ones, but these back ones here. And the first one is going to feel like it's going to fall apart because it literally is just this piece right here. And so it's going to be like, what? There really isn't anything. Like, seriously. As I drop my stuff. Hold on. Oh my gosh. Reset. Okay. Insert it. We're going to knit. Grab that stitch, which of course it's really funky. It's going to be super loose. But the rest of the stuff is going to be super tight. Try to tighten it. It's hard to do this slow for you guys. Like I said, this stitch is like the worst one. And I swear every time I do it, I'm not doing it right. Okay. That tightened up all right. We'll tighten up better. Oh my gosh. Once we do it again. Once we do the next one. I would have trouble today. Split them. Okay. And like I said, we're going to knit that back one. Okay. And we're going to go across this entire needle. I feel like I made it a little tight today, and I'm actually like, oh my gosh, I might actually break one of these knitting needles, which is why, one of the reasons why I started knitting with metal ones, but all my metal sock knitting needles are being used for other socks that I'm working on. This may be tight and tedious, and I apologize. There might be a better toe, starting way, and if you find that and like it, please go with that one. But this is the one I know and I do, and it's all right. Literally, once you put a stitch on each of these, then it's smooth sailing. You just got to get past this point. And I did make them a little tight, which I told myself not to. I think I split a stitch there. It's not, there it is. It's not pulling very well. This probably looks horrible to you guys. But I promise, once we get past the sticky situation here. I'm also using a slightly thicker than the normal sock weight yarn, so maybe that's my my problem, but it's fine. These are some really dense socks. Make sure my stitches don't fall off my other knitting needle. All right, I got 2 more on this needle, and then we go to the other one, and then we're done with the horrible, the horribleness of the situation. Okay, free up that one. Now we're gonna turn the work again, and we've got our tail over here, a working yarn over here. We're still working with the 2 parallel bumps as opposed to like the purl bumps down here. Okay. You want to keep these beautiful bumps up here. Okay, so this side's a little different. If you look closely, you can see that these stitches look like they've unwound, and that's because they're essentially backwards. Not the first one, because that's actually that slip knot that I believe what it is. So we're going to knit that normally. Needle. Now these are the rest of them are backwards, so we're actually going to knit through the back loop to twist them around. It's just something that happens when you are casting them on, so that's what you need to do. Make sure we're still recording. I hope I don't have to take this over, redo this. Tell you the truth, guys, I have had a long day. My mom and I went antique shopping. I had a blast. I've got lots of stuff for fall decorations and outdoor decorations since I'm redoing my garden, and I had a blast. And then I decided to come home and of course decorate for fall, and I'd been meaning to redecorate the bedroom, so I went ahead and did that. And so I'm quite tired, and I think this one, I don't know why I decided to do this tonight for you guys. It's like 10 o'clock at night, and this is essentially the first time I have sat down and I chose to do this with you. So, still, yeah, I think I'm in between. That's another thing. I swear these split that yarn more than the metal ones, but they're also not as slippery, which in one instant is a good thing, and another it is not. One thing, your stitches glide faster, but they also glide off your knitting needles when you don't want them to. So it's kind of a hit or miss. I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way for you guys as well. Okay, last one. Oops, as I split that stitch. Okay. And look, well, if we spread the legs, we actually see the toe. This is the actual beginning of the toe. Okay, it will turn itself correctly eventually. Let me show you on the other one. So this is actually that part right there. Okay. Let me grab some more tea and I will show you the next step. So we have done the magic, the Judy's Magic cast on. We cast it on 32 stitches. And then we just knitted that first row. Okay? So now what we're going to do is essentially row 1, or really it's row 2. So this next row, we are going to start doing the increases. And the increases are going to happen, it's going to be 4 increases in every increase row. So we are going to, at the starting point, I'm going to turn this around, and now this is where I flip it this way. So we will work on it with it like that. Now we're going to work on it like that because we are going to make our tube coming this way. Okay. But our increases, however you like to do them, I like to do an increase of make one through the front and then through the back of each stitch. It's just my favorite other than a yarn over, but I don't want a yarn over because I don't want holes in my toe. So I'm not going to be doing that. So whatever is easier on you. Obviously I will show you the make one. But you're going to essentially do it the second stitch in, second to the last stitch on this needle, and the same for the other needle. That way you're increasing at the beginning and end of both needles. And we are going to do this until we have a total of, for me, I'm doing 60 stitches. Once again, the standard when I first was starting was 64, so it's whatever you feel you need to do. I do try to keep them in groups of 4, mostly because I do a lot of Hermione's Everyday Socks, and her pattern is a 4-row or 4-stitch repeat. But it's just, once again, whatever is best for your foot. Okay, so our first stitch is going to be this one right here. Once again, make sure you do not work on, use your tail. So we're going to just kind of throw that over there. Probably could shorten it. I normally grab it with my working yarn and knit with it, and that's how I sew it in. But to make things a little bit simpler for you guys, because it does double it up and it can get kind of confusing, I don't want to do that to you guys. This is already confusing enough. Okay, so we're gonna knit this one, and then we're going to do our increase here, and that is the tail, so we're going to just tighten that a little bit. I knit like normal, but without pulling that one off, I knit through the back. That's my favorite increase for socks. And boom. It does leave a little bump right there, but sometimes that's nice to count, because I tend to like forget where I'm at. It leaves these tiny little bumps, like you can see that little yellow one and that little green one there. And it doesn't, it's better to see them over here. You can see them, oops. You can see them right here. Do, 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 do. I don't mind. To me, I actually kind of like it. You'll see them again when we do the gusset. See? Dunk, 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 dunk. But anyway, some people don't like it. Some people do. Like I said, whichever. Then we're going to knit to the last 2 stitches. If you're a lefty, or I can never remember which way it is. Is it continental? If you hold it in your left hand, please do whatever works best for you. I hold the yarn in my right hand. That was the way I was taught, and I've been stuck with it. I know it's technically slower, but this is how I do things. Okay. Second to the last one, I'm going to do an increase. Knit through the front. Do not take it off the left needle. Knit through the back. And then... And I'm sure there's a left and a right way to do it, but I don't. And there's my little increase bump. Turn the work, because remember we're working in a weird spiral. We will be introducing new needles once we start getting more stitches. But right now they'd be just too finicky with all those. I actually have split that one. Okay, make sure we increase this one. And then knit all the way across. We're still recording. Very good. Hopefully this is easy to see. I'm trying to stay in the light for you guys. If I go too far up, then I guess I could have zoomed in on the video. Hopefully it's good. If it's not, I'm sorry, and maybe I'll improve the next time. Although this is like the worst part, you know, the hardest part of knitting socks for me. I mean, it's not that it's hard, it's just it's a little tedious. It's not quite smooth sailing. And I usually, what I do is, if I'm going to be make sure we increase, if I'm going to be taking socks on a trip or something like that, that's normally why I'm, you know, I have socks going. I get the toe done first. Okay, it is going to curl because of the stockinette, but essentially it is going to be like this. Okay, turn our work, and we still have our working yarn. Our working yarn is always going to be at our starting point. If you want, you can introduce a stitch marker to let you know the beginning of the round. I did for years, and then I just learned that it was the side that the tail was on. But in case you didn't have a long enough tail or whichever. I actually prefer to do it like this. Less bulk up here. All right, this round we are literally just going to knit across. You're going to do that increase, those 4 stitch increases every other row. And on the opposite row, you're literally just going to knit. This is a little bit thicker yarn than normal. I should have not chosen this one to show you guys. I think this is like a sock weight yarn. But I have 2 other socks going, and I'm on the second one already, and I did not want to start a whole new pair. I really want to finish these 3 pairs before I start another one. So I was like, it'll be fine. It'll make me go slower for you guys, so hopefully you can see and everything, and so like that. It's just. And once again, this is a little finicky. It's a little tight. It is tiny. A lot of people have trouble doing something so small. Small needles and small yarn. It does take some getting used to. You're more than welcome to use this recipe and knit something bigger. You know, chunkier. I could not tell you how many stitches you need then and stuff. You would have to experiment or get a pattern. I don't think I've done some like Christmas stockings. But I think I did those cuffed down because that was what the pattern was. Anyway, so some more tea. Sorry guys, I am just dying of thirst. And if sorry, my AC just turned on. If you are bored right now and you're like, oh my gosh, all she's doing is knitting, pretty much just keep doing this until you have the appropriate number of stitches. Once again, I'm doing 60. A lot of the patterns and stuff call for 64. As you get more, please introduce new needles, and just that. Then that's your toe. And so if you want to deck out, like, hey, I got this, I understand it, cool. If you do, then finish your toe and then knit your sock, your foot part of the sock, until you are 2.5 inches away from your desired total foot length. When you get to that part, so you've knit, all this, when you get to that part, come and watch my next video, because then I'll show you how to do the increase of the gusset. Okay. So I'm back at the B, and that one was just a straight knit row, so now it's an increase row. Once again, we're going to just increase on the first, well, the second from the first. Oops. I dropped that one. I almost dropped the whole thing. There we go. And then the second to the last. I know a lot of people hate knitting in the round. They especially hate double pointed needles. They just think there's just too much going on. It can be a little tedious, especially right now when I'm only working with 3 knitting needles, pretty much until you get the toe done. Because like this one is kind of in my way. The other side, I'm just holding, it's in between these 2 fingers, so it's not that bad. But you just learn just to kind of ignore it. My yarn keeps getting caught on stuff, but it is what it is. If you're doing magic loop, kudos to you. I've done it a couple times. Don't forget to increase. I find that more tedious. And everybody's different. I hate the pulling the yarn and then the needles through the yarn. I find that like a horrible waste of time. We're here. I do a little bit of adjustment, just a little scoot, and that's it. And that's fine. To me, that's what I like. Now, if you see there's a little hole here, it's a little loose. That happens. It's not going to come undone. It is just going to be a little loose there. It is going to create just it's going to look like a bump, but it's not going to feel like a bump. It's just something that happens. I probably just didn't get that stitch tight enough, but it is what it is. We are doing an increase row. And how you know that is if you look, this one's a really bad example. How you can tell is there is a tiny space between the bump and the last stitch. See how the bump is this bluish and then the last stitch here was like a green? That shows that I've knitted since that bump, which that bump was that increase. Where here, where I just created this increase, there isn't, it's the bump and then the line here. There isn't another V right here. So I've used that as a gauge if I have forgotten. Here's another one. That bump is right up against that line. I've used that as a gauge to go, determine whether I have forgotten to increase or not. And there's times I have definitely have forgotten, got busy watching TV or whatnot, thought the bump was right up against and it wasn't, whatever. And it's not the big of a deal. I just end up putting a bump in the next time. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your feet have no idea that you increased one of your stitches on the next row or even the entire row. I just try not to, because you do want them nice and symmetrical and pretty. And sorry, I'm just gonna pull a little bit more yarn. It's just a little crowded right here, and I keep getting tangled. And while I've stopped, might as well get some more to drink. And make sure we're still recording. 33 minutes already. This is all we have to show for it. I know this is obviously not live or anything like that, but if you have any questions, leave them. Leave a comment. Don't forget to increase. I will try, and I try to check the comments on the videos. It's kind of hard sometimes because it's weird. I haven't figured out. I have to act like I'm watching the video. See, look, we're getting a toe now. It is going to continue to try to curl, but it'll get there. All right, so we did our 4 increases. Our tail is just getting in the way. Oops, into my tea. We'll cut it in a minute, but I just like still having it around while I'm working so close to where it is. All right, so we are going to just do a knit row. But anyway, I try to read the comments. I try to go back every once in a while and check all my videos, see if anybody left a comment. If I did not see your comment or something like that, I apologize. I definitely tried to look for any when, like, the first week or so after each video. I tried to pay attention and try to check that. After that, like, somebody might have commented on the video I posted, the first video I posted months ago, but I have not checked that one. So hopefully no one has. We are not increasing. Sometimes you just have to remind yourself. Obviously, you could use a row counter or tally marks, whatever works best for you. I really should be doing that, and I'm not. Which is, like I said, one of the reasons why I tend to forget whether I am doing an increase row or whatnot. But I guess I like to live on the danger side. Once again, if you are getting bored with this, just finish up until you have enough stitches. Obviously, you can introduce the 2 new needles. I'm not quite there yet. Not quite annoying yet. And then knit until 2.5 inches until your total desired length. The gusset we will be doing takes 2.5 inches. And so you don't want an extremely long foot. And I took a tape measure to my foot and found out that I am 9.25. Oh, I apologize. It's just 2 inches away. Oh, I hope no one left. It's just 2 inches away. Oops. Well, I'll be sure to say that in the next video. Hopefully no one left. It's just 2 inches because my tire length is 9.25, and so I knit my foot to 7.25. Whoops. The things you just, excuse me, I'm yawning. The things you automatically do and don't even think about, and you're like, oh wait, oops. Okay, back to the B. So we are going to increase. If you look, it is getting a little loose here as opposed to down here. See how it's not quite even? So I'm going to start making sure that I'm going to pull this a little tight for the next few rows just to tighten this side up because it's getting a little loose. And I think that's a common thing that happens. Let's see how loose it is. So just kind of cinch it tight. Make sure I do my increase. Make sure that's still nice and tight. All right. Knit across. If you are doing or plan on doing any kind of like pattern, like I said, I've done Hermione's Everyday Sock pattern, which is just a pattern that you introduce some pearls at a certain time, and it comes out with a really nice like dotted texture. Or I've done like lace work, I've done cabling, anything like that. I don't start it until I have done, finished with the toe. Obviously, you can definitely do that anytime. I mean, this is your sock. You can do whatever you want. But I usually, if I am going to do a pattern, I wait until I'm done with the toe. So the toe is nice and solid stocking knit. Don't forget to increase. And I only do that pattern. Oops. It fell off. I didn't forget. I only do that pattern on the top stitches of the sock. I see no point, especially like Hermione's Everyday Socks that has bumps, why you want bumps on the bottom of your foot. You'd be standing on those bumps, and I think that'd be very annoying. I've never done it, so who knows? But yeah, and so I only do them on like the half. Actually, this would be the top. Right now, it doesn't really matter. It is an even amount. And so sometimes I've seen it where, like here has a really big, like this greenish gold band. I'm like, oh, I don't really like that on my toe, but ooh, these pretty blues on my toe would look a lot better. So I'll make this my top of my foot. I totally have done that. Or I've had a blemish, or the yarn broke and I had to tie it off, so that it ended up being a little bump and I didn't want that to show. Whatever. You could totally switch it back and forth however you want. But the true top is this first needle right after the stitch marker. But once again, I don't know if I did that here. I don't think I cared. It essentially ended up being pretty much the same on each side. Oh, I just keep yawning. I'm so sorry. Oh my god, I should put caffeine in that tea. I can't believe I just yawned, do you guys? When I'm done with this, I am taking a nice shower, putting on some PJs, and I am going to read my favorite book. Once again, I just increased. If you want, I can tell you about my favorite book if you really don't care. Wow, we're already 40 minutes in. Then, I don't know, you can mute this, because I figure while we're doing this, I can tell you about my favorite book. So my favorite book of all time, once again, everybody's different, so it's not going to be somebody else's favorite book, but it's called Memoirs of a Geisha, and it's by Arthur Goldman? Oh my god. The problem is it's a memoir, and so even though he wrote it, but technically he wrote it from after like having conversations with this geisha, and she told him her life story, and he wrote it up. So really it's her story. Don't forget to increase. Anyway, I was introduced this book back in my early 20s. I mean, I think I was 20. We're getting to the point where that can actually start staying where it is. That'll help keep the ends tight as well. And at this point, now we've got a little bit of a toe. I usually end up cutting this or just shoving it in there. And I think today I'm just going to shove it. Maybe I'll cut a little bit. I still need to weave it in. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail. And I've got my handy dandy little cutter on my neck right here. Put that over there. And then I'm just going to tuck that tail in just to get it out of the way. It's probably going to pop out. But there. Out of the way. Alright, we did do an increase row last time. You can see those bumps are right up against that line. So we are going to do a standard. I'm getting close to introducing the new needles. Maybe after the next increase. So, I'm going to be going back and forth between instructing you and talking about this book. So, Memoirs of a Geisha. I was introduced to it when I was about 20 years old by a former friend, coworker. And I am currently reading it probably for the 10th time. I couldn't really tell you. I lost count after like 7 or 8. Lost count then, apparently. I also have started it and stopped it multiple times. I've also just like randomly picked it up and started reading from like a random spot, a random chapter. I've also done where most of the time nowadays, since I've read it so many times, I skip over parts that I'm like, yeah, I know this part. Let's get to the good stuff. I usually tend to do that a lot. See, my tail's falling out. I knew it would. But it's a really good book. It's written really well. I love the main character. I wish I could meet her in real life and we would be best friends forever. I absolutely love her personality and everything. And it's obviously a story about a geisha. I know there's a lot of other books by geisha, and I have no idea if those came after this book because, hey, this book was such a success, which it is a movie, and the movie's good too. Audiobook is not. I think there's 2 different versions, and each person that's read it is really dull. But I just love that book. My poor book is actually falling apart. I've read it so many times, and I don't want to get rid of it. It's like a good friend to me. And in fact, it's funny. For years, I didn't even put this together, but when I was in high school, my first English class, I had a teacher, And she, like our first day, and she's like, I want to get you guys to like reading. And she had brought a copy of her favorite book, or her copy of her favorite book. And it was Gone with the Wind, which I've read, and it's kind of boring. But anyway, to each his own. And her copy of her book was so beat up that it was being held together with rubber bands. And I thought, I want to love a book so much that it looks like that. Can you imagine reading a book so many times that that's what happened, to it? All right, back at the B, and we are going to do an increase row. I'm probably going to introduce the other 2 needles at this time. So I'm going to get to what I think is the halfway point, and then I'm going to count and figure out how many stitches I need on each needle. That's how I do it. And anyway, so years after reading this book, I was like, you know what? I think I found that book that I've read so many times that I'm going to eventually have to hold it together with a rubber band. Now, there is one other book that's kind of like that. I'm actually on my second copy because it really did fall apart. And I know I didn't keep it. I should have kept it on a rubber band, or with a rubber band. But I ended up just buying a new copy. And then that is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. That is an amazing saga. All right, I probably one more, but it's because I have increased in this one. So this side should have one extra stitch. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So really, I told you I needed one more. So that should make it 12 over here and 11 over here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, which is my normal. I usually introduce the new needles at 12 stitches. When I do, I don't mean to do it on purpose. 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Okay. All right. So I'm going to introduce a new needle. Obviously, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to stop knitting with this one and grab a new one. This gets a little tedious until... Again, this is just another stage of tediness because we have an extra needle and things are still a little funky. We don't have our toe quite done yet. Make sure we're still recording. Because I am doing 60 stitches, I will need 15 stitches on each needle. I am now creating 12 stitches on each needle. So I have 3 more increases to do, and then I'm done with my toe. If you're doing the 64 stitches, then you'll need 16 stitches on each knitting needle. All right, gonna increase. Oops. As I talk about it, I drop it off the needle. I don't know. Maybe I'll see how I pulled through that. I'll show you guys how I increase before I'm done increasing for anybody that animals in the gates. Maybe I can show you a close-up or something, or another one, just in case you... Although by this point you should know how to do an increase because we've been doing them so many times. Oops. Didn't grab that whole... Oh. Get funky over here. Anyway, Ken Follett, Pillars of the Earth is another good one. Actually, I should finish talking about Memoirs of Geisha. So, it's about it's set in Japan, and it's about a girl, and this is like pretty much the generation that goes through World War II. Okay. Oh my god, I forgot to add in a new needle, so now it looks a little funky. I should have another one. I could switch them over, but I'm just gonna wait until I get back to the other side. It's not hurting anything. All right. We increased, so now we're not going to increase. But, anyway, her name is Chio. And she gets sold pretty much into slavery into a house which is called an okia, and it's a house that pretty much like raise and not really host, but raise geisha, and then geisha end up living in this house. And it's, you've got to open your mind to that type of world. And she will definitely help you. She will teach you everything about that world. But you've got to, like, not compare that world with that. I mean, not really. I should say judge. Their world is completely different. Their culture and everything like that is completely different than the other ones. But it's nice because she does bring you into that world. Anyway, well, she struggles. She has trouble, you know, as a kid accepting her new life, and goes through trials, and you feel for her so much. You know, she becomes your best friend, and you just feel so sorry for her. But then the other thing, you know, I don't want to give anything away, so I'm going to be very vague. But other stuff starts happening, and things turn out all right for her. Maybe not amazing. I mean, she doesn't end up being like a princess or something, but it's based off of a true story. In the front of the book, there is actually an author's note, and it's him talking about his conversations with the main character. And she, when she gets older, she ends up moving to New York, and that's where he met her, and they start talking, and he videotaped, like audio recorded their conversations, and he ended up writing her story. 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. One too many. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yes, one too many. Because I've already increased, so. This little poor knitting needle is bent. Drives me insane when I'm knitting with it. Alright. We are almost there. Once again, it's just depending on how many stitches you want to do. I know this is getting a little tedious. And in fact, since we are at 52 minutes, I'm just gonna let you go. This is literally, just keep doing this until you get to the desired stitches, and then just knit stockinette or whatever pattern you're gonna do. Just knit that stockinette until you're 2 inches away from your desired length. When that happens, come back and look for the other video. Now, it's going to be a while because I got to find time to knit my own sock until that point. So, if that comes to case, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to, like, get it done fast for you guys. But yes. So, once you get to that part where you're 2 inches from your desired length, stop. Come back to video 2. And then I will show you guys the gusset. Okay? All right, you guys. Have a good one. Bye.